Before discussing the human rights in Islam, let's go over a few points about two major approaches to the question of human rights, the Western and Islamic. This will enable us to study the issue in its proper perspective and help us avoid any confusion which generally befogs to such a discussion. The Western approach. The West has the habit of attributing every good thing to themselves and try to prove that it is because of them that the world got this blessing. Otherwise, the world was steeped in ignorance and completely unaware of all these benefits. So let us look at the question of human rights. It is very loudly and vociferously claimed that the world got the concept of basic human rights from the Magna Carta of Britain, though the Magna Carta itself came into existence 600 years after the advent of Islam. The truth of the matter is that until the 17th century, no one even knew that the Magna Carta contained the principles of trial by jury, habeas corpus, and the control of Parliament on the right of taxation. If the people who had drafted the Magna Carta were living today, they would have been greatly surprised if they were told that their document also contained all these ideals and principles. They had no such intention, nor were they conscious of all these concepts which are now being attributed to them. As far as my knowledge goes, the Westerners had no concept of human rights and civic rights before the 17th century. Even after the 17th century, the philosophers and the thinkers on jurisprudence, though they presented these ideas, the practical proof and demonstration of these concepts can only be found at the end of the 18th century in the proclamations and constitutions of USA and France. After this, there appeared a reference to the basic human rights in the constitutions of different countries. But more often, the rights which were given on paper were not actually given to the people in real life. In the middle of the 20th century, the United Nations, which can now be more aptly and truly described as the divided nations, made a universal declaration of human rights and passed a resolution against genocide and framed regulations to check it. But as you all know, there is not a single resolution or regulation of the United Nations which can be enforced. They are just an expression of a pious hope. They have no sanctions behind them, no force, physical or moral, to enforce them. Despite all the high-sounding, ambitious resolutions of the United Nations, human rights had been and are being violated and trampled upon at various places, and the United Nations has been a helpless spectator and/or hypocritical. The UN is not in a position to exercise any effective check on human rights violations. That is so even when a heinous crime of genocide is perpetrated with no regard to any proclamation of the United Nations. Genocides have taken place and are taking place, but the United Nations does not have any power to take any steps to stop the genocide and do justice for all. No action is even taken against the country guilty of this most heinous crime. So let us look into basic human rights according to Islam. The first thing we find in Islam for every man or woman in this connection is that Islam lays down some rights for everyone as a human being. In other words, everyone, whether he belongs to this country or that, whether he is a believer or unbeliever, whether he lives in a forest or a desert, whatever be the case, he has some basic human rights simply because he is a human being, which should be recognized by every Muslim. In fact, it will be his duty to fulfill the following obligations. 1. The right to life. The first and the foremost basic right is the right to live and respect human life. The Holy Quran lays down, "Whoever kills a human being without any reason like manslaughter or corruption on earth, it is as though he had killed all mankind." 532. As far as the question of taking life in retaliation for murder, or the question of punishment for spreading corruption on this earth is concerned, it can be decided only by a proper and competent court of law. If there is any war with any nation or country, it can be decided only by a properly established government. In any case, no human being has any right by himself to take human life in retaliation or for causing mischief on this earth. Therefore, it is incumbent on every human being that under no circumstances should he be guilty of taking a human life. If anyone has murdered a human being, it is as if he has slain the entire human race. These instructions have been repeated in the Holy Quran in another place, saying, "Do not kill a soul which Allah has made sacred except through the due process of law." 151. Here also homicide has been distinguished from destruction of life carried out in pursuit of justice. Only a proper and competent court will be able to decide whether or not an individual has forfeited his right to life by disregarding the right to life and peace of other human beings. The right to life has been given to man only by Islam. You will observe that the people who talk about human rights, if they have ever mentioned them in their constitutions or declarations, then it is clearly implied in them that these rights are applicable only to their citizens, or they have been framed for the white race alone. This can clearly be gleaned by the fact that human beings were hunted down like animals in Australia, and the land was cleared of the Aborigines for the white man. Similarly, the Aboriginal population of America was systematically destroyed, and the Red Indians, who somehow survived this genocide, were confined to specified areas called reservations. They also penetrated into Africa and hunted down human beings like wild animals. All these instances go to prove that they have no respect for human life as such. And if they have, it is only on the basis of their nationality, color, or race. Contrary to this, Islam recognizes this right for all human beings. If a man belongs to a primitive or savage tribe, even then Islam regards him as a human being. To the right to the safety of life. Immediately after the verse of the Holy Quran, which has been mentioned in connection with the right to life, God has said, "And whoever saves a life, it is as though he had saved the lives of all mankind," 532. There can be several forms of saving man from death. A man may be ill or wounded, irrespective of his nationality, race, or color. If you know that he is in need of your help, then it is your duty that you should arrange for his treatment for disease or wound. If he is dying of starvation, then it's your duty to feed him so that he can ward off death. If he is drowning or his life is at stake, then it is your duty to save him. You will be surprised to hear that the Talmud, the religious book of the Jews, contains a verse of similar nature, but records it in altogether different form. It says, "Whoever destroyed a life of the Israelite, in the eyes of the Scripture, it is as if he destroyed the whole world. And whoever protected and saved one life of the Israelite, in the light of the Scripture, it is as if he saved the whole world." Talmud also contains the view that if a non-Israelite is drowning and you try to save him, then you are a sinner. Can it be given a name other than racialism? We regard it as our duty to save every human life because it is thus that we have been enjoined in the Holy Quran. On the other hand, if they regard it necessary to save the life of a human being at all, it should be the life of an Israelite. As far as other people are concerned, according to this view, they do not seem to be human enough to deserve protection of their persons. In their literature, the concept of goyim, for which the English word Gentile and the Arabic word ummi, illiterate, is used, is that they enjoy no human rights. Human rights are reserved only for the children of Israel. The Quran has mentioned this belief of the Israelites and quotes the Jews, saying, "There is no blame on us for anything we may do with regard to the unlettered folk," that is the ummi, 3:75.